You know, for a few years there, it seemed like we'd stumbled into some kind of logical utopia. We proved, on a global scale, that for many jobs, work is a thing you do, not a place you go. We got back hours from our commutes, we were more productive, and we could finally do laundry during a Tuesday lunch break. It made sense. So naturally, we had to put a stop to it immediately. Welcome to the Obvious Report, where we look at things that should be simple, but are somehow impossibly complicated. Today's topic, the Great Office Standoff of 2025, the final, desperate, and utterly baffling war being waged to get you back into a cubicle. Let's start with a common-sense question. If your car is working perfectly fine, do you spend thousands of dollars to have a mechanic replace the engine with an older, less efficient one? No. Because that would be monumentally stupid. Yet, corporations across the country are currently spending millions of dollars on return-to-office incentives. We're not talking about free coffee anymore. We're talking about on-site baristas, lunchtime puppet-petting sessions, artisanal kombucha on tap, and wellness rooms with beanbag chairs that no one is ever brave enough to actually use. They are trying to bribe us with trinkets to come back to a building we don't want to be in, to do the exact same work we were doing perfectly well from our living rooms. This isn't a business strategy. It's a parent trying to trick a toddler into eating their vegetables by promising them ice cream. The only difference is, we're not toddlers, and the vegetable is an hour-long commute. The headlines are everywhere. Major bank demands 5 days a week in office, tech giant links bonuses to badge swipes. They're installing employee monitoring software, or Bossware as it's affectionately known, to make sure you're at your desk, jiggling your mouse with sufficient enthusiasm. They are measuring in-office collaboration with the same scientific rigor as reading tea leaves. They say this is about culture, about synergy, about those spontaneous water cooler moments that supposedly spark innovation. We'll get to that. But what this is really about is a fundamental, almost willful, misunderstanding of what work has become. They're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and they're making a huge, sticky mess. So how did we get here? How did the office, a concept born from filing cabinets and landline telephones, become such a sacred temple that we must return to it at all costs? Well, like many questionable ideas, it seemed like a good one at the time. Before we can understand the absurdity of forcing everyone back to the office in 2025, we have to ask a simple question: why did the office exist in the first place? The modern corporate office is a relatively new invention, born in the early 20th century. It was designed to solve a very specific problem: information couldn't move. Documents were physical paper. Communication happened via telephone or face-to-face meetings. To get work done, you had to put all the people and all the paper in the same building. It was a giant, human-powered filing cabinet. A sensible solution for the technology of the time. Then came the internet. Then came email, cloud computing, instant messaging, and video conferencing. The fundamental problem that the office was created to solve, the tyranny of physical distance, was gone. Information could now move at the speed of light. The giant filing cabinet was now, for all intents and purposes, obsolete. We spent 2 decades, from 2000 to 2020, pretending this wasn't the case. We dutifully commuted to the office to sit at a computer and send emails to the person sitting 3 feet away from us. We attended meetings in person to look at a PowerPoint that could have been a PDF. It was inefficient, but it was familiar. It was the tradition. Then, 2020 happened. And for 2 years, we were forced into the world's largest beta test for remote work. And the results came in. The companies didn't collapse. Productivity didn't plummet. In many cases, it went up. The experiment was a resounding success. They say they need to protect the corporate culture. This is the most nebulous excuse of all. What is the culture they're so desperate to preserve? The culture of commuting? The culture of spending $10 on a sad desk salad? The culture of trying to look busy between 3 and 5 p.m.? For most employees, the culture they experienced was one of constant interruptions, pointless meetings that could have been emails, and the quiet pressure to be the last one to leave the office. The new culture, the remote culture, is one of autonomy, trust, and judging people on their actual output, not on their ability to sit in a specific chair for 8 hours. And that, right there, is the problem. If you judge people by their output, you don't need a manager standing over their shoulder to see if they're working. And if you don't need that, then what, exactly, is the purpose of a middle manager whose primary skill is looking busy and scheduling meetings? This paranoia has led to the explosion of Bossware. Software that tracks your keystrokes, takes random screenshots of your screen, and even uses your webcam to make sure you're at your desk. It's a technological leash. It's the digital equivalent of a manager walking past your cubicle every 5 minutes. It is, in short, a solution to a problem that only exists in the minds of those who created it. But what about the other side of the argument? The employee side. It turns out, their argument isn't based on paranoia, but on simple, undeniable logic. We've heard the corporate buzzwords, synergy, culture, water cooler moments. Now let's look at the employee's argument for remote and hybrid work. It's shockingly simple. It's based on math, time, and sanity. Let's start with the commute. The average one-way commute in a major city is about 45 minutes. That's an hour and a half every day. 7.5 hours a week. That's an entire extra workday every single week that you spend unpaid, sitting in traffic or crammed into public transit. By working from home, you get that time back instantly. This isn't a perk. This is a fundamental life improvement. What's the corporate counter-argument to this? There isn't one. They just ignore it. Next, let's talk about money. Another common sense point. The average office worker spends thousands of dollars a year on commuting, buying lunches, and work clothes. When you work from home, that money stays in your pocket. It's an immediate pay raise. Again, what is the counter-argument? That the free kombucha somehow makes up for it? And then there's the biggest, most obvious point of all, actually getting work done. The modern open-plan office, which was ironically designed to foster collaboration, has been scientifically proven to be a cathedral of distraction. There's the constant chatter, the people walking by, the unscheduled, quick questions that are never quick. Many people found that working from home was the first time in their careers they could actually focus for more than 20 minutes at a time. They could concentrate on deep work and get their tasks done in 6 hours instead of a meandering 8 or 9. The argument that people are more productive in the office is, for most workers, simply not true. It's where productivity goes to die. So, let's recap the employee side. They get back nearly 400 hours of their life per year. They save thousands of dollars. And they can actually focus on their jobs. This seems like a pretty open and shut case. A win for the employee and a win for the company that gets a more efficient, happier worker. So if the arguments for returning to the office are based on nebulous buzzwords, and the arguments against it are based on hard data and logic, there must be another reason for this frantic push. A reason they don't want to talk about. And it has less to do with your productivity, and more to do with very, very expensive real estate. So, we've established that the productivity and culture arguments for returning to the office are flimsy at best. So what's really going on? Why are companies so desperate to get our bodies back into their buildings? The answer, as it so often is about money. But not the money you might think. Follow the common sense trail. What is a company's biggest expense after salaries? For many, it's real estate. Massive, multi-year leases on gleaming glass towers in expensive downtown cores. Before 2020, this was just the cost of doing business. But now, it's an albatross around their neck. These companies are sitting on millions of square feet of empty, or mostly empty, office space that they are legally obligated to pay for years to come. Every empty desk is a quiet testament to a colossal waste of money. The push to get you back in the office isn't about your synergy. It's about justifying their real estate portfolio. They need your presence to make their balance sheets look less embarrassing. You are, in effect, a very expensive set decoration. Then there's the pressure from outside. City governments are panicking. Empty offices mean a collapse in commercial property taxes. It means the entire ecosystem of downtown businesses, the coffee shops, the lunch spots, the dry cleaners, is failing. They are putting immense pressure on large corporations to force their workers back to the city core to re-energize the local economy. So, you are being asked to sacrifice your time and money on a commute so that the city can maintain its tax base and your CEO doesn't have to explain a bad real estate investment to the board. It suddenly makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? This is the great unspoken truth of the return to office debate. It's a massive, convoluted effort to prop up two interdependent industries, commercial real estate and middle management. Both are facing an extinction-level event thanks to a technology that makes them largely redundant. They're dressing up a financial problem as a cultural one. They're selling you a story about collaboration and innovation, when the real story is about long-term leases and a fear of change. But can this standoff last? Can you really force a square peg into a round hole forever just because you paid a lot for the peg? Common sense suggests the answer is no. The inevitable future, the one that common sense points to, is a hybrid model. A system based on balance. Teams come into the office for specific, purposeful reasons: kick-off meetings, collaborative workshops, social events. And the rest of the time, people are trusted to do their work wherever they work best. It's a model that gives employees the autonomy and work-life balance they want, while giving companies the collaboration and cultural touchpoints they claim to need. It's a compromise. It's logical. It's the obvious solution sitting right there in the middle of the room, while everyone argues at the extremes. We've dissected the corporate buzzwords, we've laid out the logical case for flexible work, and we've uncovered the financial incentives propping up the old model. So, what happens now in this great office standoff? Common sense suggests that you can't fight gravity forever. The shift to a more flexible way of working isn't a temporary trend, it's a fundamental evolution, enabled by technology. Forcing people back into an outdated model is like a record label insisting that everyone give up streaming and buy CDs again. It's a losing battle against convenience and progress. The companies that insist on a full, 5-day-a-week return will face a brain drain. Their most talented people, the ones who have options, will simply leave and go to the companies that offer the flexibility they want. It's already happening. The standoff isn't between companies and their employees. It's between companies that are adapting to the 21st century and companies that are clinging to the 20th. The Great Office Standoff of 2025 will be remembered not as a war, but as the last, loud, dying gasp of an old way of thinking. It's the friction that happens when an entrenched system meets an undeniable new reality. The puppet-petting sessions and the kombucha taps are just a sideshow. The real story is the slow, grinding, and completely predictable victory of common sense. The office isn't dead. But the idea that it's the only place where valuable work can happen? That idea is, and should be, a museum piece. That's the simple truth, as we see it. I'm your host for the Obvious Report. Stay informed, And try to remember that common sense isn't always so common.